Looking to take your financial knowledge to the next level? You're in the right place. Welcome to Ask Ralph, offering accounting, technical, and financial advice. Whether you're looking to save taxes or improve your business, he's got you covered. Here's your host of Ask Ralph, Ralph Eastup Jr.
Welcome back to the Ask Ralph Show. Today I thought I'd talk a little bit about a small business checkup. I got some information from this article by a woman named Joyce Rosenberg, who writes for the Associated Press. And these are the things that she recommends, and I would have to agree with, recommending small businesses to take a look at in 2018. The first thing is meet with an accountant. What am I talking about here? Well, with this new tax law that's come into effect at the 1st of 2018, every business owner needs to know how this new tax law is going to impact them. And the best way to do that is to meet with your accountant. Or if you don't have one, I would suggest you find one. A lot of this is going to be unknown until the IRS actually writes the regulations. But some of the things we do know already is that the Section 179, and what am I talking about here? Section 179 of the IRS code allows small business owners to write off the purchase of equipment and things like that right away. Now, what they've done with this new tax law is they've increased that to $1 million. So that gives small business owners the ability to purchase equipment, computers, machinery, and all those type of things, and write off that up to $1 million in 2018. Small business owners also need to be aware of the increase in the standard mileage rate, which went from 43.5 cents to 54.5 cents. It was up from 53.5 cents up to 54.5 cents. Second thing on our checklist for small businesses at a checkup, the economy. With this growing economy, most experts are expecting growing profits. There's such a great deal of optimism in the economy right now. In fact, there was a study done by Pepperdine University and the Graziato School of Management alongside with Dun & Bradstreet that found in the first quarter, 42% of owners intend to add 1 to 2 staff members over the next 6 months. This is up from about 35% in the previous quarter. Now, of course, this depends on strong consumer sales. But most experts are saying that consumer sales are going to continue to be strong. They were certainly strong in October, grew in November, and excellent growth in December as well. And they attribute that to a 25% increase in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. What am I talking about here? People are looking at their 401k statements, and they're seeing that their 401k savings are growing, and they feel good about the economy. And when people feel good about the economy, they're more likely to spend. So that's another thing that we talk about in this, small business checkup. Are you prepared for the growth that you're going to see? Third thing on the small business year checkup, healthcare. Now, most business owners have already set their 2018 healthcare plans in motion, but we need to start thinking about 2019. Healthcare.gov is no longer going to be available going into 2019 for small business owners to use to look for group policies. They're going to be forced to go to the outside market again. They're going to have to deal with brokers or deal with the insurance company directly. So this is going to create a stress where, small business owners who are offering small group policies were able to use healthcare.gov before to find these policies. Now they're going to be forced to go back to brokers and go back to insurance companies direct. Now, at the same time that all this is going on, we've got the end of the individual mandate starting in 2019. Now, the reason that's impactful for small business owners is when the Affordable Care Act came about, a lot of small business owners decided to completely eliminate their group policies because they found that their workers could get better coverage, through the Affordable Care Act and to healthcare.gov. But now that that's not going to be mandated, this is an area where small business owners may want to examine and take a look at, does it make sense now to get key people or to retain key people to look at a group policy again? The next area in our checklist, sexual harassment. Now, this is something that nobody likes to talk about, but it's something that all small business owners, in fact, all business owners really need to address. What am I talking about here? I'm talking about updating their employee handbooks, and this needs to happen soon. There's a quote here in this article by Jay Starkman, who's the CEO of Engage PEO. Now, PEOs are companies that do employment for people. And what he says here is every employer should have a policy in their handbook that makes clear that sexual harassment is not welcome and that defines sexual harassment. And that may seem like a very simple thing, but you would be surprised how many employers, first of all, don't have handbooks at all, and secondarily, haven't addressed this issue. Now, there's a great deal of resources available online. There's templates you can use. But the thing that's very important, and I get this question a lot in my practice, Ralph, what do I do about, writing a handbook? And I say, go look at some of the tools that are out there. But the key to this is you need to have your employment handbook reviewed by an HR professional or an attorney. And make sure if you're going to use an attorney, somebody that really understands, employment law, because not every attorney is skilled in employment law. And if you're going to take the time to put together a handbook. And that's another thing I say, in general, you got to have a handbook. I don't know how many times in my practice we've had employers come in and they've had to let somebody go, or they want to let somebody go. And I'll say to them, well, Joe, what's in your employee handbook? And they'll look at me like I'm, crazy. Well, I don't have an employee handbook. And I said, well, then you don't have any legal legs to stand on. Now, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to sit here and give legal advice. But the truth of the matter is you need to work with an attorney or an HR professional or an HR company even, and develop a handbook that addresses, all of the things that need to be addressed in a handbook, such as, what are the policies and procedures? What are the ways that things are resolved? Talk about sexual harassment, talk about benefits. One of the things that we deal with a lot is, somebody will go out and collect unemployment, and I'll say to the employer, hey, the folks at the Department of Labor want me to provide them with proof in the handbook, first of all, that the employee actually got one, that they read it, and secondarily, what are the procedures in there? And it's shocking to me that even in 2018, a lot of employers don't have those handbooks. So again, they don't have a legal leg to stand on. So that's something I think we really need to focus in on, for this year. And it's a great thing to do as part of our checkup. But like I said, once you get it drafted, make sure you have it reviewed. Don't just assume that it's okay. The next part of that is you may want to consider training sessions for your staff. Just because you have a handbook or you have a sexual harassment policy doesn't mean that there's not still shenanigans or a misunderstanding or everybody doesn't know what that is. I was watching a episode of Chicago Fire the other night, and they actually brought in, outside trainers for that. And I thought that was really important because, sexual harassment is a very important thing, and it makes people uncomfortable. You need to make sure as a business owner that you're addressing that. The final thing we want to talk about in our small business checkup is minimum wage. Now, this doesn't affect a lot of people in Delaware because there wasn't any change to the minimum wage laws in Delaware. But this is something that every business owner needs to review at the beginning of each year to make sure that their payroll is up to stuff. I've taken over clients who were not even paying their employees minimum wage. And that's something that, the U.S. Department of Labor and the Delaware Department of Labor in Delaware would come after you for. So it's something you really need to focus in on. So just as a recap, what are we going to do in our small business checkup for 2018? We're going to talk to our accountant about moving forward with the tax law. We're going to look at the economy and plan for growth. We're going to look at our healthcare policies. We're going to look at our overall company policies and develop a handbook. And we're going to make sure that our payroll records are up to date. I hope this has been helpful.
You've been listening to Ask Ralph, brought to you by Sazio Accounting Plus. Please subscribe to and rate our podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a rating and review. Our podcast is produced by Carolyn Peters. Thank you for listening, and be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Ask Ralph Media. You can also hear me each week on 1450 WILM and on 1410 WDOV in Delaware, and on the iHeartRadio app. Submit your questions or ideas for future shows by sending an email to AskRalph@AskRalph.com.
The information contained in this episode of Ask Ralph is based on data available as of the date of its release. Sagio Accounting Plus and Ask Ralph Media Inc. is under no obligation to update this content if changes occur. Applying this information to your specific situation requires careful consideration of all facts and circumstances, and any information provided is not to be considered as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult your tax advisor or attorney before acting on any material covered.